There's a revival happening in the United Kingdom right now. This one centers on music and the way we consume it. We're talking about vinyl records. In fact, they've become so popular that the government is using their sales as a gauge of inflation. Isabella Diaz explains what's behind the comeback.
It once was considered a medium of a bygone era. Decades ago, vinyl records, with their pops, skips, and scratches, were left to collect dust on the shelves, making room for cassettes, CDs, and then finally, streaming services. But in the last few years, some music lovers in the UK have been changing their tune when it comes to digital downloads and online music streams. Instead, many are opting for music you can hold in your hands. And now, vinyl is more popular than it's been in decades. According to 2023 data by the British Phonographic Industry, or BPI, sales for vinyl records in the UK increased for a 16th straight year, selling more than 6 million records.
Thanks a lot.
Those sales were fueled by vinyl releases from musicians like Lana Del Rey, the Rolling Stones, and largely Taylor Swift.
Who knows if she never showed up, what could have been?
In fact, vinyl sales in the UK hit a 33-year high in 2023, according to audio tech company A2D2. Those sales are moving the needle on UK's GDP so much, the government's adding vinyl to its shopping basket of goods impacting inflation for the first time since 1992. And vinyl sales are expected to keep climbing. A2D2 predicts music artists will make more than $5.2 billion in US and UK vinyl sales this year. That's their highest level since 1990. But for all the hype, don't expect Brits to completely scrap Apple Music or Spotify anytime soon. According to BPI, streaming makes up more than 87% of all music consumption in the UK. Still, some music enthusiasts say vinyl could very well outlive all its successors.
There won't be Apple in the future. There won't be Microsoft in the future. But there'll be vinyl.
Isabella Diaz, CGTN.
For more now on the state of the global music industry and the revival of vinyl, I'm joined by Zack Stiegler, professor in communications media at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Zack, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. You know, the move to vinyl, it's not entirely new. It's been around for quite some time. But recently, we've seen a growing legion of fans embrace this old way, if you like, of listening to music. So what's behind the shift?
I think it's a few things, really. I think first, I would stress that what we've seen isn't really a shift to physical media so much as a resurgent interest alongside digital formats. Streaming is absolutely the dominant way that most of us consume music today. So it's not as if the resurgence of vinyl is coming at the expense of digital music. But these are two things happening at the same time. As for the why, I think that shift to digital is a part of it. I don't think we can put the digital genie back into the bottle. I don't see digital media going anywhere soon. But from a strictly consumer perspective, we gain too much in digital media to give up. Ease of access, mobility, a staggeringly large catalog. So I think we'll see some evolution in the dynamics of the digital economy for sure, but I'm hard pressed to think that there'll be a time where consumers abandon digital formats. That said, in such a digitally centric media landscape, I think there's a real appeal to physical media, and vinyl records are probably the best example of this. They're large objects, there's a real sense of tactility, there's a clear sense of the album as a large piece of work rather than the piecemeal on-demand experience of streaming. There are often bonuses like the artwork, the liner notes, inserts, and increasingly the vinyl disc itself is coming in a variety of colors and styles and even picture discs and things of that nature. So I think this is a real attraction to the materiality of vinyl. And I think tied to that also, there is also the appeal of a collection. Digital formats, whether it's streaming or MP3s, they allow us to build or grant access to a large library of popular music, but we don't own that music in any sense, right? We pay for access to it, not the object itself. So physical media allow us to buy objects and cultivate a collection, which is often seen as an extension of our personality or identity. And then lastly, I think there is the matter of nostalgia, and that cuts a few ways. For older folks who grew up with vinyl records, there's a nostalgic interest back to the earlier times of their lives when they were having their musical discoveries. And for younger folks who grew up later, I think it's also kind of a retro appeal that plays well into the retro view of mass media more broadly right now, with so many film and TV properties setting themselves in earlier eras, the 1980s especially, and often within these programs and films, music features prominently. And I'm thinking here of things like Stranger Things, for example. So I think that these are some of the reasons for vinyl's resurgence in recent years.
Now, Zack, what about the role that popular artists are playing in this current vinyl boom? Do they support it? Do they embrace it as well?
Yes, in the role of your kind of massively popular artists are interesting because they cut a few different ways in terms of how they impact vinyl, what that relationship is. So if we look at vinyl sales in 2023, your reporter mentioned this, that Taylor Swift was a big winner last year. And in fact, she had the top three best-selling titles were all Taylor Swift titles. And that accounted for 7% of all vinyl sales in the US, nearly 3.5 million units. So without a doubt, big-name artists with passionate fan bases can drive sales here. Consider also, though, that something like 50% of buyers don't even own a turntable. So for them, it's more of a collectible item rather than a format for listening. And adding to this again, Taylor Swift, for example, will often release variations of the same title with different cover designs or maybe slightly different track listings. And so the most devoted, the most passionate fans are going to go out and try to buy all the variations. So popular artists like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and the like can really move physical units as well as streaming numbers. But this comes at a cost. After vinyl fizzled in the late 1980s, many vinyl pressing plants closed down, ceasing operation. And as demand has picked back up, this places pressure on a smaller number of plants. So when there's a big ticket title like a Taylor or Beyonce or Naidoo, plants will push those titles to the front of the production line because they're the moneymakers, right? And so what that means is that smaller artists, independent artists, and local artists who want to press vinyl often have their projects delayed. So the role of the big pop stars in vinyl cuts two ways. In the last few years, we are starting to see some more smaller vinyl plants opening up that are catering to local regional artists. So we're alleviating some of that pressure, but I think that these dynamics are going to more or less remain in play.
Right, and Zack, as we heard, 80% of people still consume music via streaming, digital downloads, if you like. So what kind of impact is this resurgent interest in vinyl having on the digital part of the industry?
Back to our earlier point, I'm not sure there's too much of an impact on streaming and digital as a result of vinyl's resurgence. Even for consumers who might prefer to listen to vinyl over digital, they're not taking their records with them to listen to in the car or in the office or to the gym, right? So streaming is simply too convenient for active mobile lifestyles. I don't think there's a big impact there.
Zack Stiegler, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Anand. Thank you so much for having me.